Good morning. We'll wait 1 minute and then get started. I've got a lot of stuff to go over today. For a change. You ready? Good. I plead the fifth. Okay, everyone. Very good. So today we're going to take a look at what we believe happens after we die. The best I can do today is give you Afterlife 101, the short version today, because we could actually do 10 classes on the afterlife. There's so much here. But I can give you a basic understanding of what Judaism teaches happens after we die in our time period today. Okay. So if we look at the Torah, and remember again, I never take for granted that everybody knows everything. The Torah is the 5 books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and it's the first third of the Hebrew Bible. We have the Torah, then we have the prophets, then we have the other writings. That's the Bible. So the Torah is the first third of the Hebrew Bible. Okay. The Torah says absolutely nothing about an afterlife. 0. People who die in the Torah all go to the same place. It's a place that's called Sheol, which is usually translated as the pit. And it's just like the Greek concept of Hades, meaning that so everybody who dies in the Bible, in the Torah, and 90% of the Bible, they go to the death place. And the death place is called Sheol. If you're good, you go there. If you're bad, you go there. Just everybody goes to Sheol. That's the place you go when you die. And that's all throughout the Torah. We see that. It changes slightly because there's one specific episode in the Tanakh, and then there's one phrase at the end of the book of Daniel. So let's talk about this specific episode first. So in the book of Samuel has 2 books, right? Samuel 1 and 2, Kings 1 and 2, and they come right after Joshua, right? So we have, Joshua, Judges, Samuel 1, 2, Kings 1, 2. All right. There is an episode where King Saul has to go out to battle the Philistines. And his kingship is already in jeopardy because of he has proven to be a very unstable king. And he wants to know what's going to happen when he goes out to battle the Philistines. And so he goes to a witch. And in our case, it's the person who conducts a seance. What are they called? The medium. He goes to a medium, right? And that is forbidden in Judaism. We don't do that kind of thing. Nevertheless, King Saul disguises himself, and he goes to a medium. And he says, I need you to summon my prophet. Samuel, who has already died. I need you to summon my prophet Samuel. And yes, Samuel. And so the witch of Endor summons Samuel from Sheol. And Samuel appears before Saul, and he tells Saul, "You're toast. Your kingship's gone. God has abandoned you. You're out of here." And what's so interesting about this episode is it doesn't specifically speak of an afterlife, but it does suggest if Samuel's energy still exists in Sheol, Samuel has not been obliterated, right? Samuel's essence is still there somewhere in Sheol that the medium could summon him up. So the episode simply suggests that there's something more. It simply suggests it. Now, the other comes from the book of Daniel. And Daniel is probably the latest addition to the Hebrew Bible. It's probably the last thing that was added to the Jewish canon. And most scholars believe that Daniel was added after the Babylonian exile in the 400s. The Babylonian exile was 586 to approximately 538. So in the 400s, probably the book of Daniel is added. That's important because Daniel is really the only specific reference we have to an afterlife in the Bible. What does Daniel say? Daniel 12. Many of those that sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to eternal life, others to reproaches, to everlasting abhorrence. So in the very last book of the Tanakh, we have a reference to the doctrine of what we call the resurrection of the dead. Now, if we look to our tradition to find out what does Judaism teach happens after we die. Remember how I told you in our very, very, very first class here that Jewish theology is like a buffet table, right? And we had the kosher table over there, we had the treifa table over there, remember? And I told you that what the authentic Jewish ideas are on the kosher table. If you want to believe one of the ideas that's on the treifa table, you can believe whatever you choose to believe. But the kosher table contains what Judaism teaches. So, on the kosher table, we have three important ideas. The first idea of what happens after we die is what we just talked about, the resurrection of the dead. The second, you know what, I want to add one thing here. No problem. So we have what's called the resurrection of the dead. Is everyone able to see? Sorry. The second idea has to do with our souls, and the third idea has to do with reincarnation. So let's go up to the first idea first. So the resurrection of the dead. The resurrection of the dead is a very early belief in Judaism, and it was probably brought over by the Babylonian exiles. Because the Babylonian exiles were living in Babylon, and the dominant religion within Babylon was Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism absolutely has the idea of the resurrection of the dead. The resurrection of the dead means that when you die, you come back to life. Okay? So the Babylonian exiles brought back the idea of resurrection of the dead. Now, part of that idea was already, I think, in the Israelite psyche, right? Because we had been slaves in Egypt, and the Egyptian pharaohs are buried with all their accoutrements because they are going to live again. It wasn't as clear an idea as the Zoroastrian idea, but it was there. So the exiles will bring back the idea of the resurrection of the dead. Like many things in Judaism, we co-opted ideas from around us. We were basically a new people on the scene. There were a lot of people, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, there were a lot of people who were already there before us. And they already had very well-established theologies, pantheons of gods, etc., etc. And so we borrowed, we took, and then we sort of made it our own. So we have this idea of resurrection of the dead, and it's an early idea in Judaism, and it becomes part of our belief system. Clearly, Jesus, right, who was a Jewish rabbi teaching Judaism, albeit not the preferred ideas of Judaism from the high priest, but he was teaching Judaism nevertheless. So his resurrection is very much in line with ancient Jewish beliefs. We don't believe in it, obviously, but the idea is in line with ancient Jewish beliefs. Now, the rabbis weren't sure. They believed in resurrection of the dead, and they weren't sure how it happened or when it happened. Did it happen immediately after you die? Did it happen in the Messianic age when the Messiah has come? Is it your body that you're resurrected into again? Is it a different body? I mean, the rabbis just didn't know. But they believed in the principle of the resurrection of the dead. The resurrection of the dead was a basic tenet of belief for the Pharisees. But not the Sadducees. And this was a major bone of contention between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Say again? How did we make it to this century? I'm not sure what that means. With all the infighting, how did we make it to this century? And no statues and no pictures. Well, part of the reason we made it is that because during the Second Temple period, with all the infighting, 4 out of the 5 groups who were infighting were eliminated or died off, and that only left one standing, the Pharisees. And out of the Pharisaic tradition come the rabbis. It isn't like the Pharisees become the rabbis. That's not true. But the Pharisaic legal tradition becomes the tradition of the rabbis later on. You remember that during the Second Temple period, so the Second Temple is rebuilt, and then the sacrifices are up and running again, And then over the course of that time period, 530 to 70 CE, so 530 plus 70 over the course of 600 years approximately, there are different groups of Jews who believe in different things. So we have the Pharisees. They come into their own around 165 BCE, along with the Maccabees. We have the Sadducees, who we know very little about them, but they were probably the priests. They were the wealthy priests. Then, as we get more later in the Second Temple period, we have the Zealots who were fighting Rome. And then we have the Essenes who moved out into the Judean Valley as a solitary sect in the Judean desert. And then I would add later on, that's what Josephus tells us, those four. I would add later on, we have the Nazarenes, those Jews who were following Jesus. They were during the Second Temple period too, the last part of the Second Temple period. Anyway, during that period, all of those groups end up not existing anymore. So, the Sadducees have nothing to do once they were up and running again after the first temple got rebuilt into the Second Temple, but when that's destroyed in 70 CE, there's nothing for them to do anymore. They have no raison d'etre anymore, right? They can't do sacrifices anymore. The Essenes die out during the first century, during the Jewish-Roman wars. The Zealots make their last stand at Masada in 65, so they're all gone. The Nazarenes disperse into diaspora communities and ultimately become Christian, their communities. And so the only people left are the Pharisees. They're the only ones left. And out of their legal tradition come the rabbis in 70 CE. Okay, so the resurrection of the dead, the idea comes from Zoroastrianism. It's brought back by the Babylonian exiles. It is embraced by the Pharisees. It is not embraced by the Sadducees. There's a big bone of contention there between the two groups. The Reform movement, coming to modern times, has taken that out of their belief. They don't believe in the resurrection of the dead. Okay. Now let's take a look at the idea of soul. Because the idea of soul, there isn't in our Bible, there are ideas about the soul, but it doesn't say anything about what happens to the soul when you die. So recall, when is the Hellenistic period, the Greek period of Jewish history? Say again? Solana says 200 BCE. Very close, very close. It's a little bit earlier than that, but very close. So Alexander the Great marches through the ancient world in 300 BCE. So you're very close. And spreads Hellenism, spreads Greek ideas throughout the ancient world. And Judaism became exposed to all these Greek ideas. When we say Jewish philosophy, philosophy was not a Jewish thing at all. We were exposed to philosophy because of Greek writings, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato. And so little by little, the idea of philosophy creeps into Judaism. That happens much later, but philosophy was a Greek thing. The idea of what Plato called the disembodied soul is a Greek idea that creeps into Judaism. The idea that the soul and the body are separate. Now, it is loosely based on Plato's idea. It is not exactly Plato's idea at all. There are many differences. But the idea that there's a soul and there's a body and they're independent of each other comes from Plato's idea and Greek ideas. So, in the book of Ecclesiastes, which in Hebrew we call Kohelet. Why is it Kohelet? Because Kohelet is the name of the person about whom the book is written. And Kohelet was probably a Greek Jew, because Kohelet presents a lot of Greek ideas. So remember, Kohelet is there's nothing new under the sun, right? But Kohelet is a very, it's a very kind of like, it is what it is kind of book. And I remember when I was younger, and when I was going through rabbinical school, I thought Kohelet was just the worst thing. I just thought, God, this guy, really? This is all there is? This is it? Because ultimately, Kohelet's idea is, look, live your life, be happy, revere God, because that's it. And I remember when I was younger thinking, that sucks. I don't like this at all. I don't like this at all, this idea. Now that I'm much older, it's like, well, yeah, this guy was pretty brilliant. Yes. Live your life, be happy, revere God, because that's all you got. Anyway, so in Kohelet, we have the idea that the dust goes back to the ground and the spirit will return to God who gave it. That's Kohelet 12. And so the idea that I think many of us here today probably believe in this idea among Jewish ideas, that our bodies return to the ground, they decompose and they're gone and our skeleton's in the ground, but that there's a part of us, our soul, our essence, our life force from God that continues to exist. And we want to believe that our soul continues on and lives with God somewhere in the Olam Haba after we die. So this was not an idea that was at its core Jewish. It was Greek, and we co-opted it. And we co-opted it loosely from the idea of Plato's disembodied soul. All right. The third authentic idea that we have in Judaism is called Gilgul Nishamot, the reincarnation or transmigration of souls. And this comes from the Kabbalah. So if you are thinking reincarnation, that's not Jewish. It's very Jewish. It's absolutely Jewish. And depending on when you lived, if you asked a medieval Jew living in Europe, what happens after we die? The most common answer you would hear is that we are reincarnated. Why? Because let's take a look at this again. The Kabbalah is at its peak, it is at its ascension about what year? Lurianic Kabbalah really comes into being in the 1500s. And the Zohar, the major book of Kabbalah, has been written a little before that. And what else happens in 1500 that is a huge turning point in world history? The Jews are expelled. Columbus. Printing press. You get the gold star. The printing press. You're right. but the printing press. It's also the Protestant Reformation, and the Renaissance, and blah blah blah. But the printing press. The printing press changes everything. Just like for all of us in this room, the internet changed everything. It was. I mean, how can we even assess the impact that the internet has had on our lives compared to what we were doing when we were younger and we didn't have the internet? So the printing press did that same thing in 1500. So many people all of a sudden had access to the Kabbalah. About 40 years ago, you were watching a History Channel, and they had a series on the 100 most important events throughout history. When it got to number one, it was the printing press. Absolutely, absolutely. Susie?
I have a question.
Yes, Susie has a question.
From Warren and Belinda.
Yes?
Is there a definition
Is there a definition of
of the word ecclesiastes?
the word Ecclesiastes? Ah, that's a good question. I know it's so I don't know the answer to that. Can somebody look it up for me while we're sitting here? Another internet thing. Just pull up just somebody look up Ecclesiastes for me. But sorry, Warren and Melinda, I don't know exactly, but we're going to look it up right now, and we'll find out. So the printing press changed the course of history, changed the course of world history. And so the Kabbalah was then disseminated throughout Europe, and Jews all over now had access to the written word. Remember that Jewish communities in general were more literate than most communities. Jewish men were tasked with studying, and so they had to read and write. Not so much Jewish women, unfortunately, but that's another issue. But Jewish communities were generally more literate. So Jewish communities could read, and so the access was there to these printed material. Yes?
It says who wrote Ecclesiastes and why. The author of Ecclesiastes is traditionally attributed.
Yes, we want to know what Ecclesiastes means. One who convenes an assembly is what it means? Usually it's church related. Ecclesiastes is definitely not the Jewish term for the book. It's Kohelet, after the main character. But Ecclesiastes is what it became known as. It means one who convenes an assembly. The Greek translation, Ekeslia, which means assembly. Gathering people together. Okay. Ecclesiastes is presents a lot of Greek ideas. So it is not unusual at all for us to find that Plato's idea was is included in Ecclesiastes. Okay, so we have Gilgul Nishamot, the reincarnation and transmigration of souls from the Kabbalah. So the Kabbalah contains a number of different ideas about the transmigration of souls. Way too many for me to even get close to going into today, but suffice it to say that when you die, you are reborn, you are reincarnated into another existence of some kind, and generally speaking, it depends on how you lived your life in this world. If you were a righteous person in this world, you were generally reincarnated into a higher being of some kind until you ascend all the way to God. If you have misbehaved and were a bad person in this world, then you may come back as a lower life form. You could come back as an animal, you could come back as a tree, you could come back as a rock. And the only way then that your soul could be liberated to begin a movement upwards again is if somebody used you or ate you and said a blessing beforehand. The blessing then releases your soul to ascend to a higher level. So isn't reincarnation a central tenet of Hinduism? Absolutely. Of Hinduism. Of Hinduism. Hinduism. Yes, absolutely. And Buddhism. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no indication that we got it from them. I mean, it's possible that in ancient times, Buddhism and Hinduism are very ancient. And there may have been some cross-pollination during trade routes and things like that. So we may have picked up something like that. But the reincarnation is absolutely an authentic idea in Kabbalah. From the ideas of reincarnation, we get the idea of the Dybbuk, right? A soul that is lost in the middle somewhere and comes back to inhabit another body. So reincarnation is definitely one of our most important ideas. So those three, resurrection of the dead, soul, the disembodied soul, and reincarnation. Those are the three authentic ideas that are on the kosher table for what happens after we die. If you want to be, as I said, if you want to believe something else, okay, but it's not authentically Jewish. Authentic means, do we find it in any of our texts? Does our tradition tell us that? And can we find it in the Torah, the Tanakh, the Talmud, the Midrash, the Kabbalah, the Zohar, anywhere in there? Is it in any of those books? If it's not, it's on the treifa table. Okay. You can do whatever you want. I just want to present to you authentic Judaism. So if someone tells you another idea that's not one of these three things, you can say, well, that's not authentic. You can believe it if you want, but it's not authentic to Judaism. Aside from the Orthodox, Gary says, what percentage of the Jewish people actually believe in one of the three? You know what? I have no numbers to give you numbers on that. I would say that my experience tells me the majority of Jews probably believe in the disembodied soul as an idea. I don't think many Jews believe in the resurrection of the dead. And certainly mystical Jews will believe in the Kabbalah and the reincarnation, certainly. But the Hasidic movements are all mystical movements. Chabad is a very mystical movement. Chochmah, Bina, Da'at. Chabad. Chochmah, Bina, Da'at. There's three Sefirot from the Kabbalah. So I'm sure there is a mystical slant there among the Hasidim, absolutely. But I don't know the percentage. How do you reconcile reincarnation, resurrection of the dead? So Rosa is asking, how do we reconcile resurrection of the dead with reincarnation? And my answer is we don't. There are three different ideas that come along at three different times of Jewish history from three different areas of study. Right? The resurrection of the dead is ancient. It comes from Zoroastrianism. That predates Hellenism. Then comes the disembodied soul. And the Kabbalah doesn't come about until way after that. So these are three very different ideas. They don't have to agree with each other, and they don't agree with each other. So you can choose as Jews which of the plates you want to pull off the kosher table and believe in it. Okay, let's take a look now at heaven and hell. So we have in Judaism two different ideas. We have the idea of heaven. It's called the Olam Haba. Olam, the world, Haba, that is coming. The world which is to come, the next world. Sometimes we call it Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. And that's our idea of heaven. Then we have another idea, which in rabbinical terms is Gehenna. Maybe you've heard of that. So Gehenna, the word Gehenna comes from the valley called Gehinnom. Ge means valley, Hinnom, the valley of Hinnom, which sits just outside of Jerusalem, the valley of Hinnom. I remember when I was there in 2007, we were on the bus and we had the tour guide and everything, and he said, well, and if you look to the left, you'll see the valley of Hinnom. And I was like, what? The valley of Hinnom? Where? I was so excited. I couldn't, nobody else knew what it was, but I was so excited because I knew how important it was. So in ancient times, the valley of Hinnom is where there was a statue of Moloch. Worshipped by several different peoples, and it was a god to whom the people sacrificed their children. And what we are told is that this giant statue of Moloch had a mouth that could be operated. And the mouth would open, the people would put their children in the mouth would close, and the children would fall into the fire. And so our people thought, what worse place could there possibly be? That's the worst thing we could ever think about. So Gehinnom, Valley of Hinnom, became Gehenna. And so we, in common parlance, Gehenna has come to mean hell. But we don't really have hell. Gehenna really is purgatory, the Christian concept of purgatory, meaning you have to go there for a while until you are cleansed of your sin, and then you can go to heaven. Why is it purgatory? Because if we look at the Talmud, Bava Metzia, it says, all who descend, meaning all who go to Gehenna, ascend, get to go back up, except for three. And you say, okay, well, who are the three people who have to stay in Gehenna? And that would be a great guess. However, here are the three. the one who commits adultery, who sleeps with a married woman, the one who embarrasses his friend in public, and the one who has a bad nickname for his friend. And so your question to me is going to be, wait a minute, that's worse than murder and adultery and what? And incest? Are you kidding me? So first understand, the one who embarrasses his friend in public, the Talmud says that is the same as killing somebody, because you have embarrassed them, they're humiliated, they're mortified, and their face turns white like a corpse. So it's like murder. What I would tell you is, I think this is an attempt by the rabbis to really reach the people in a popular way. I think the rabbis were saying to the people, all right, all of you here, when you go to Gehenna, everybody gets to come up, except for these three things, which all of you are doing at this very moment. You are going around gossiping about your neighbors. I know that some of you are sleeping around with your neighbor's wife. That's a no-no. And you're saying bad stuff about people. Guess what? You're going down and you're not coming back up. So cut it out. I think that's what the rabbis were saying. It may be too late. I think the rabbis were using it to make a point. That, look, we all do like stuff that we don't think hurts people, but it does. And we need to like not do it. We really need to not do it. But the idea of Gehenna is that everybody who goes to Gehenna doesn't stay there. You go back up. You have to go down there for a while. Let's say you've done some things in this lifetime, but you've reformed yourself, you've repented, you have done teshuvah, and so you have to go down for a while for your soul to get cleansed, and then you get to go up to God, which is the reason we say Kaddish for how long? 11 months for a parent, right? We say Kaddish 11 months for a parent. Why? Because our souls ascend to God over the course of 1 year. And let's say our parents weren't good people. And trust me, I've done so many funerals, there's a lot of these. I sit down with the children and they're like, my dad and mom, they were awful. They were terrible. I mean, that happens way more than you would think. My dad treated my brother like he didn't exist. He treated my sister like she was the princess. Blah, 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 blah. You know, on and on. Anyway, so...
But they went to see your family in San Francisco all the time.
Yes, I'm not talking about my family in particular. No. No, I'm saying in general. No. My mom, thank you. My mom and dad I was so lucky on this earth to have my parents. I had the most wonderful, I had incredible mom and dad. It's okay. Education, and my mom, my brothers and I won the mom lottery. She took us violin lessons, piano lessons. She took us here. She took us there. Great mom. Okay, so anyway, but I do counsel lots of families, and often, more often than one would think, it wasn't a good experience. So we say Kaddish for 11 months because let's say our parents weren't good. We as children want them to get out of Gehenna. And every time we say Kaddish, it's like a little boost of air for them to get out of Gehenna. And we don't know how long they have to stay there. But our tradition says, look, if they had to stay there for a full year, if they had to stay there for a full 12 months, and we don't know, 12 months in our time, we don't know what that is in God's time. That could be 20,000 years, I don't know. But if we have to say Kaddish for 12 months, our parents were so bad. Oy vey. And so we don't want to think about our parents being so bad, so we're going to hedge our bets. We're going to say it for 11 months, just in case they need a lot of Kaddishes to get out of Gehenna. And that's why we say it for 11 months. The Kaddish is sort of the get out of jail prayer that helps their soul ascend to God. And that's why we say Kaddish for 11 months. So in our tradition, you see the word Duma there. Gehenna is overseen by the angel Duma. He is the one who, after the angel of death has taken a person, taken a soul, and that person goes to Gehenna, Duma, like the Greek god Hades, is the one who presides over Gehenna. Your soul, what, so the question is, what do you do in Gehenna? Your soul is subject to fire. Because fire purifies. Fire purifies in our tradition. And so our soul becomes purified. It is a concept of hell. The only difference is that hell is permanent and Gehenna, according to the rabbis, is temporary. So when you say, so you can be very smart when the people say, oh, hell and Gehenna, well, you could say, Gehenna is really purgatory because everybody who goes down goes up, back up. So it's really like purgatory. All right. Gan Eden, heaven, the rabbis had lots and lots and lots of different ideas about what it looks like, but you can imagine that all of the ideas were wonderful, right? All the ideas about heaven are that it's a peaceful place where scholars get to study in the big study hall with God, and, yes, Rose. Gehenna is just for Jews? Well, no. So, good question. What about the worst of the worst of the worst? Do they get to go back up? Because it says everybody gets to go back up. Well, Maimonides clarified it for us, thank God. And Maimonides said the worst of the worst, they go to Gehenna and their souls are obliterated in Gehenna. So, Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong, if you don't know, it was the top mass murderer in the history of the planet. And Hitler and Stalin. Yep. The worst of the worst, their souls are obliterated in Gehenna. There's no chance for them to get out. So thank you, Maimonides, for letting us sleep at night. So now, when we talk about the Olam Haba and Gehenna, how did that idea come about? Because that idea is not in the Torah, it's not in the Tanakh. It comes about much later. It comes about really in fruition around 135 CE. So what is happening in 135 CE? Rabbi Akiva is living, and Bar Kokhba is staging his rebellion. For those of you who don't know, Bar Kokhba was a Jewish general, and he was resisting the Romans. And he assembled a small band, small, by his standards it was large, but by Roman standards it was tiny, band of Jewish fighters, Jewish zealots, and they went around and they conducted guerrilla warfare against the Roman soldiers who were in Jerusalem at the time and around Judea. And he had some successes. And the Romans thought, this guy is a pain in the tuchus, right? And so what did Rome do? Rome sent in the full weight of the Roman army, which was huge. It was the most powerful fighting force the world had ever known at that time, and they sent in the full force of the Roman army to crush Bar Kokhba. Rabbi Akiva thought Bar Kokhba was the Messiah. The Roman army comes in, and Bar Kokhba gets just smashed. It's over, done. And so Rabbi Akiva thought, look, we've been trying to get our kingdom back. We've been trying to have a Messiah, a new king, a new Jewish king to reestablish David's kingdom. We're going to have a class on Messiah coming up. And Akiva realized it's over. It's never going to happen. And Akiva is put to death. But before he died, Akiva said, look, so maybe the deal here isn't that you are rewarded in this lifetime or you are punished in this lifetime, like the book of Deuteronomy says. Akiva said, maybe your reward or your punishment will happen in the world to come after you die. So, if you die and you were not rewarded in this world, you will be rewarded in the next world, the Olam Haba. If you were a bad person in this world, and we know lots of bad people in this world who seem to do just fine. They're despicable human beings, and they do just fine. They do just fine. And so the idea is, well, maybe then the idea is that they're going to get punished in the next world. They're going to Gehenna. They're going down, down, down when they die, and they're going to get their punishment then. And so this idea of sort of delayed reward or delayed punishment came because even our ancient rabbis realized reward and punishment doesn't work. Deuteronomy sets it up. Behave and God will bless you. Misbehave and God will punish you. Well, we know lots of really, really good people who have had terrible things happen to them and have had terrible lives. They should have been rewarded. What's up with that? And we know lots of terrible people who just seem to have made it through just fine. And you say, well, why? How is that fair? How is that supposed to happen? And so our tradition said, well, rest assured, they will get theirs in the next, after they die. Okay, so these are the authentic ideas within Judaism. This is how the ideas of heaven and hell developed. As I said, Gehenna is most often translated as hell, but I don't think it's technically correct. You could say hell, but it's not really technically correct. It's really purgatory. And so you, as I said, to finish off, you can choose among these three ideas as a Jew about what you believe in, or you can pick something from the Treifa table. Okay, it's not whatever you want to believe. You could take from both. Okay, you'll take the dessert from the Treifa table.
Yeah, I want to make an announcement. Susie and I have been thinking about having an MID summer school, and I don't know if any of you here are interested in taking MID classes during the summer. And this has been proposed to us for a number of years because at the end, our classes end the end of February, and some of you in the past, some of you now, have asked whether or not we could extend MID for the summertime because, it adds something special. So we're just curious in terms of how many of you, it would be a very short session. And Rabbi Mark has offered to come back to teach. So it would be maybe 4 weeks in July and that's a time that you're available, so that's good. So I'm just wondering how many of you would be interested in coming back during the summer? Okay, I think that's pretty good. Almost everybody, they love you.
Well, it's nice to be loved, and I love you too. All right, everyone, have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next week. Yeah, whenever they want, but Wednesdays is good for me. They were saying it's going to be on Wednesday.
Can you stay to play Mars for the group? Are you available? No? Huh? No? Helen's available. Aren't you?
just want you to know we sent out the search party for the rabbi. We sent out a search party for the rabbi. Rosie. Is this one working better? Yeah. This works better.
They won't know if you're a bad player. Nobody sees you. What? They won't know if you, I haven't played Mahjong in 5 years. If I go to play and I make a lot of, nobody will know. They don't see your titles. They don't know how stupid you are. When you're playing, they know how slow you are. Oh, already I got I ain't playing with you. No, you don't want to play with me. What? I hate the new card. Oh, this is, I normally, a few years ago, I was able to memorize the card in, matter of a week or two. I don't think I'll have this one memorized even by the end of the year. It just, there are too many similarities, and this hand has pattern is 2, 3, 4, flowers 2, 3, 4, and dragons and whatever, but I don't remember it. I don't remember the combinations, and then I'm constantly looking and getting them mixed up in my head and whatever, and then I'm going crazy. If you don't remember, I'm not playing. Well, I came in on Sunday. I went to a tournament. I came in 20th out of 84. So
That's very good.
yeah. Ah, he is coming. I usually come in the top third. Usually not that great. Once in a great while.
I definitely don't want to play with you.
I can teach you to play better. I'll give you lessons on how to play a better game.
Susie gives lessons on Mahjong.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But I teach people to play better.
Oh, advanced.
Yes, I will advance your game. And I do it for free.
Well, it's like what Susie does. Susie is at Saudi because she raises money for the JLC by teaching them. You got a very high compliment. I know I do this in the high school. Okay, so first is praise, then is true confessions, and then is the material. Okay, first the praise. Let me tell you, I was going to tell some of you talking about mahjong. I was talking to Susie is quite the party animal because this Susie is like the surrogate grandmother of one of our families. They are neighbors with one another. Your backyards are like facing each other, diagonal. And the Saunier family, this lovely, lovely family from Adat. Anyway, Susie's very close with them, and so she was at the bar mitzvah party. I was at the bar mitzvah party too. I like going. I usually don't stay the whole time. My 12-year-old son was having such a great time. I was there. The cleanup crew was finishing, and I'm still there because my 12-year-old is having such a good time. And I'm like, I need to go to bed, and I can't hear any more of this loud music. I need to go to bed. But anyway, it was good. But I want to tell you about one of a story that I heard at the table about Susie, which is that they were all talking that a group of the JLC, that's the Jewish Learning Community, mothers, they said that they all signed up for mahjong lessons, and Susie is their teacher. And they said that she is the best teacher. Not only is she the best teacher, yeah, you can give her a round of applause. So they were like, she takes the game super seriously. They're like, you learn how to really play mahjong. And there's like there's different fonts of instructions with different color codes, and like it's like the real deal. One of the ladies said, I thought I'd go and play a little cards. I didn't expect it was really and she was so grateful for the dedication and professionalism that Susie does. So you'd think then that Susie was earning a little parnassa because of this, but she takes the money that she earns from mahjong and donates it right back to the Jewish Learning Community, to the JLC, to the religious school. So all of these women are like, we're having a great time, we're learning from an expert, and then we're helping subsidize Jewish education. So it's like really just incredible for you, Susie. It's really a round of applause for you. Okay, I'm not going to test you because I have no idea what I'm talking about. I did with my old shul. I think I told you the story once. Which Susie's son is a member of. They said there was a mahjong tournament, so I thought I'd go and say hello and schmooze with everyone at the table. They were like, "Shut up!" There was clocks and rules. I'm like, "Hello, everybody." Shh. So anyway, it was really, I learned my lesson. Don't mess with sisterhood. That's the lesson you learn. Do not, it's the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not mess with sisterhood. Yeah. I've noticed. No, I love your husband, but right, he's not a wallflower. No, right? That's why you love him, but he's not I'm not a wallflower either. And they told me to shut up. Yeah, exactly. That's right. So, okay. So that is the praise. Thank you. The second is a recognition that today is Yom HaZikaron. Did Rabbi Goodman talk about Yom HaZikaron at all? The afterlife. Okay. So I think just in the course of the day, it's good for us to mention that today is Yom HaZikaron. It is the day in which we honor the fallen over 25,000 soldiers, men and women, and victims of terror who gave their lives either through acts of bravery or in their innocence. Their blood was shed either in defense of and the establishment of our homeland, the state of Israel. And we said in the bracha this morning, Ahava Rabbah, we talk about, me arba kanfot haaretz, v'haviyinu l'shalom me arba kanfot haaretz, that we were brought from the four corners of the world in peace, komimiyut le'artzenu, in order to establish our land and our presence in the land. And that bracha is only a reality because of God acting through human agency. And so those men and women who gave of their lives were doing God's work in the creation of the state of Israel. And so what I'd like to do is to ask for a moment of silence in their memory. Okay, thank you. May their memory be for blessing. The other thing that I just want to now do is some shameless advertising, okay? Tonight is the Yom Ha'atzmaut concert here at Adat Ariel. If you don't have tickets, you can still come in and you can buy tickets at the door. It's going to be a beautiful, the Cantors worked so hard on putting together a beautiful concert with just a really incredible lineup. I was just looking at the program. So that's Yom Ha'atzmaut tonight. On Sunday evening, on Sunday at 5 o'clock, we are hosting Jordan Gorfinkel, who is a really interesting guy. He used to work on Batman comics. So he was the artist in Batman comics. And he's a Jewish guy and became more religious. And he wrote a few years ago the graphic novel Haggadah. So he took all of the the text of the Haggadah and he made like a comic book out of it. It's incredible. We bought it in our family, and then he got commissioned to write, to take the classical text from each of the books of the Bible and to draw a comic essentially for the entire Bible. So he's in the midst of that project. He's a very good educator. He will be here on Sunday evening at 5 o'clock for a presentation. Sunday at 5. It's in all of our emails. So we'd love for you to come, and you can bring whoever. It's free, and we'd love for you to come and be part of it. Then he will also still be here. He'll be working with the kids on Monday and then Tuesday during the day. On Tuesday evening, for those of you who are in my Talmud class, today Joette's not here, and either Melinda and Warren. They're online. Hi, Melinda. Hi, Warren. They're in my Talmud class. As part of my Talmud class, we're hosting Jordan Garfinkel. So Sunday, his presentation is more of not like a lecture, but like a presentation. On Tuesday, he's running a workshop, which is we're going to take a piece of Talmud text and we're going to try our hands at making an artistic impression of the Talmud text. That is Tuesday. So if you have not participated in the Talmud class, you are welcome. This can be your first time, and it's Tuesday evening at 7:30. Yes, Tuesday evening at 7:30. And then, if that's not enough going on, then on Wednesday evening, there is the Sisterhood Torah Fund dinner, which is a fundraiser for all of the rabbinical schools. And we're honoring Erin Weiner, who is a teacher in our JLC and a parent in our community. And so we're honoring her. And so it's a lovely event. Amy Mazer is running it this year. It's a great event. And it's always just a lot just to be able to be together and to honor a special teacher is very nice. So that is all coming up. So Sunday, come here. So come here on Shabbat because it's Shabbat. Oh, we also have Shabbat at Adat. Dennis Cohen is discussing his short story on Saturday afternoon. If you get the idea that there's a lot going on here at Adat, that's what I want you to walk away with, that we do a lot of things because we drink a lot of coffee. And we want to provide many opportunities for you as a community to do as much as you possibly can. Okay, so that's Dennis is on Saturday. Sunday is Jordan Garfinkel at 5 o'clock. Take a rest on Monday. Tuesday is the Talmud class with Jordan Garfinkel, where you'll be able to try your hand in making Talmudic art. And if it's any good, we will take it and sell it for profit. And then on Wednesday is the Torah Fund dinner, which will honor Aaron Weiner. So it's very good. Okay, Susie. Ooh. It's a tea. That's right. It is a tea. So there are scones on Saturday. Paloma told me all about this. Good. On Saturday, this Saturday, there's after the service, we're having, there's lunch, and then Dennis Cohen will be discussing his short story, which we emailed to everybody in the yesterday or today. And you can either read it in advance or print it out, look at it. He'll be discussing his short story, and we will be eating scones. So not bad. Okay. Very good. Okay, now, because today is the theme of Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom HaZikaron, and leading into Yom HaAtzmaut this evening, I wanted to discuss Israel with you. So I'm taking a break. I figured you wouldn't mind, because I'm always tangential anyway, so I always talk about whatever is coming up. So the class is usually about Talmud, but I don't know. I've never really stuck to that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Israel today, and I thought that we spend a lot of time talking about Israel, like the now of Israel, right? I'm going to start getting up. I should have made another cup of coffee. We start talking about Israel and like, oh, the Palestinians and Gaza and the Iranians and this thing and that thing. And it's very easy and understandable to get lost in the moment, to get lost in the now, to get lost in what's happening in Israel today. You know, David Wolpe, who is my mentor, he used to say, if you ever get asked to teach and you're not sure, they always ask you to teach like 3 months. You know, I'll probably get an email next week from Susie and from Rosie asking, what do you want to teach next year? You will, right. So this is what Rabbi Wolpe would advise me to tell you, because this is a topic that he says will work. You have no idea what you're going to say, but you know the topic is true. Israel at a crossroads. So you could say, like, put me down 2 years from today. I'm teaching MID. The topic is Israel at a crossroads. And it's always true. It always feels like the moment is filled with existential angst and extreme importance, and it is always true. I'm not minimizing that. And it's also good to say, wait a second, how do we look at it from a bigger picture? What do we really want Israel to be like? What do we want Israel, what do we want the values of Israel to be? What kind of society? If we are, today, I'm going to show you guys something. Today, I'm wearing my Theodor Herzl socks in honor of Yom HaAtzmaut. So the camera, get a close-up. Not of my pale white legs, because I'm a Polish Jew after the winter, but these are my Theodor Herzl socks. And Herzl was a dreamer. Im tirtzu ein zo agada. He's a dreamer. If we're living the legacy of Herzl, we have to dream about Israel. Not only face the momentary realities of Israel, the Hamas brigade in southern Gaza, like, look, it's a lot. Haredim in the draft, the budget, getting rid of the head of the intelligence. Like these are all huge issues, enormous issues. There is a lot of Israel, probably more than any time in my 20-year career, over 20 years, Israel at a crossroads. It works for right now. And at the same time, let's embody the vision of Theodor Herzl, where we're still dreamers about Israel. That's why I wore the socks today, because I want us to think about not only like the momentary angst of Israel, but the possibilities of Israel. And so I'll confess I didn't spend a whole lot of time with it, but one of my favorite thinkers about the possibilities of Israel is David Hartman, Zichrono Livracha, Rabbi David Hartman. And he was a modern Orthodox / trans-denominational philosopher. He started out as a pulpit rabbi, Orthodox synagogue in Montreal, I believe, and then he moved to Israel. He made Aliyah, where he raised his family, and he was a philosophical agitator about Israel and what Israel should be. And so he has this article. I just thought we'd read a little bit and see about like, what are we thinking? It's called, it's in his book called The Living Covenant. The chapter is The Third Jewish Commonwealth. Right? If you think about it, the first one was the Davidic monarchy. The second one is, after the Babylonian exile, Second Temple period. And now here we are again. What does it look like? What are we dreaming that this, if we have a blank, you're all coming on Tuesday night. By the way, if you want to come on Tuesday night and you are worried about getting home, I can get you a ride. Okay, so like if for some of you who don't like driving at night or don't drive at all and you want to come on Tuesday night, if you just email me on Monday, by Monday, and I can get you a ride for Tuesday. I'll have someone come and pick you up, or I'll come and pick you up. If I come and pick you up, you have to pay for gas. That's the bad thing. I'm going to charge you for gas. The good thing is I have an electrical car. So you have to pay for the gas, but there is no gas. So, okay. So let's read a little bit. I'm going to read, and then this is how David Hartman used to teach. David Hartman used to go to his class. By the way, David Hartman is the reason that I failed the class in rabbinical school. I'll tell you what happened. I think I failed. I actually don't know. I think I failed, though. So David Hartman, I studied at the Machon Schechter Institute in the 2001-2002 school year. So it was at JTS, and you go to Machon Schechter, which was in Jerusalem, where you finish up your studies, or you take a year there. Okay. I had lived in Israel before. I'd studied at the Hebrew University. I'd done stuff. They had you get to Machon Schechter. This is true the conservative movement. Sorry, Ernie, I know you're so disorganized. So you get a list of the classes from JTS. You sit down with your advisor in April, right after Pesach, and they're like, all right, you need to graduate by this, and so take this class, this class, this class. You get a list, you walk out, you take the list over. So I go to Machon Schechter, and I'm like, so here's what I need to do. I did this with my advisor. They're like, oh no, this is what they said in America. But here you're a Machon Schechter student. You need to take this class, and this class. All right. Most of it was the same. There was one class that wasn't the same. Introduction to Israel seminar. And I emailed my advisor, JTS. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not taking this stupid class. This is a waste of time. Not that I've lived in Israel. I've taken study. I know I don't need the first time to Israel little who is Theodor Herzl lecture class. And then to add insult to injury, the class David Hartman was teaching at his institute the same time he was teaching a class comparing Soloveitchik to Heschel. And I'm like, wait a second. I have an opportunity to hear one of the greatest contemporary scholars talk about a comparison between two of the greatest rabbinical thinkers of our generation, and I have to go to stupid Israel 101. I'm not going. Like, and so they're like, well, if you don't go, you're going to fail. I said, all right, fail me. I don't care. And so I think I failed. I'm sure I did. Guess what? Not once have I made a contribution to them either since I left. So I'll make a contribution to Torah Fund. But anyway, anyway, this is David Hartman. He used to sit there and he taught like this. He used to tell stories that then he used to ask hard questions. So let's read a little bit of David Hartman. I'll read it. And it's too bad Zissel's not here because he usually he gets up, he's got something. But, you know, no, I want you to. It's very much like David Hartman in his memory. Like, that's good. That's good. No, you have to do that. Okay. The rebirth, I have no idea how far we're going to get. The rebirth of Israel and the ingathering. Does everyone see where we are? The rebirth of Israel and the ingathering of many Jews from the four corners of the globe has awakened new biblical religious passions within the Jewish community. What does he mean by that? What does that mean? Yeah. And I think there's also an added dimension. Oh, I'm sorry. The joy of coming together as a nation is essentially what Rosalie said. I think there's, Nadia. Right, like v'havienu me'arba kanfot haaretz, like bring us together. It feels, and you use the word that I want to concentrate on. See, I think Rosalie built a good foundation, and then Nadia adds an extra element. It's the joy of being, the joy of the Bible, but there's a prophetic edge, and the prophets, as opposed to the rabbis, have a different religious sensibility. The rabbis they're realists. They make compromises. They see the shades of gray. And they are, what's it called? Like when you live in the real situation and you kind of pragmatic, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. They're pragmatists. Prophets are not pragmatists. What's that? They're idealists. They're agitators. They are stubborn. No one wants to hang out with a prophet. You don't want to go get a beer with a prophet. You don't want to invite a prophet over for tea. A prophet comes over for tea. They tell you everything you're doing wrong in your life. We all have people in our lives like that. You have people who you need to agitate you and get you to see something. And then you have people who are the rabbis are the ones you want to have over for tea. The prophets are agitators. And they are impassioned and they don't compromise. And the truth is that the reestablishment of the ingathering of the exiles did awaken a biblical passion within Israel. And you see that really taking shape in the past 20 or 30 years in Israel, if you look at the political landscape. Where the political landscape moved, here's a radical move that it made. It moved from, you have like Ben Gurion, who's a pragmatist, and all of the labor Zionists, and even when you had Menachem Begin come from the right, Menachem Begin was still liberal and believed in democracy. He had a different political slant than his labor predecessors. He was more right wing, but he had a fidelity to the foundations of democracy. Like, Israel felt much more democratic than it did Jewish. And now it's flipped. Now it's flipped where you see, especially emerging on the Israeli right, it's much more impassioned by not the advance of democracy, but the advance of allegedly Jewish ideals or Jewish nationalism. And it kind of has a streak of this prophetic passion. You know, my kids are in, one of my kids is in Israel right now, my oldest one, Heschel, and I was telling him on the phone the other day that I remember I wanted to learn in yeshiva. I didn't like JTS so much when I started, so I wanted to learn in yeshiva because I was like, they're really serious. So I packed up and I went to Israel. It's so stupid. Like, I packed 3 bags. I'm like, I'm just going to go to Israel and find the yeshiva and learn. And like, I made contact with this one place that said, yeah, you can come. And the yeshiva was a Zionist yeshiva, and I didn't understand really like the different kinds of, so like, oh, good, Zionist yeshiva. So I get there. It was 1998. Yeah, 1998. I get there, and they are, there's stickers all over the dorms, death to the Arabs. This land is like our land, from the river to the sea. Palestine, Israel will be free. Like, just the Jewish version of. And I remember like I had the whole dorm room to myself on the weekends because the other students would go out and they would build settlements on the weekends. They'd go out and they'd build. They weren't really legal. They would build outposts, and it was considered like in the yeshiva you got off to do that. In other words, like if you didn't show up to class, you were building a settlement. That superseded. There was a religious passion. There was a prophetic sense of zeal there. I mean, I stayed there. Like the day I got there, I knew I was leaving. I just needed to, I needed to find it. I was like, this is not what I saw. Like this is not the place. And I think about that place a lot because I see now what those students who are now have kids, who are the ones who are like the Hilltop Youth. Do you know what Hilltop Youth is? Hilltop Youth are the kids in the West Bank who are Zionists, so they wear big knitted kippas. Sometimes they have payas, and sometimes they don't, but they're like big Zionists. And they go out into the West Bank, and they plant themselves down on a hill, and they claim it, and they're not too concerned about whose property it is or what the law is or whether they're supposed to be there or permits, and they just go. And there is a whole in Israel, like the people who were kids, were in our 20s, these are their children. And that is celebrated. And that is the Ben Gvirs and the Smotriches. That's what that is today. Like, I know what that looks like. That's
that's part of when I hear the word biblical religious passion. I want Israel to be, I love Tel Aviv. And I love Tel Aviv most when I see it, the creativity of Tel Aviv infused and the liberalism of Tel Aviv infused with Judaism, like kind of like a cross. But there is a lot of biblical passion that is not the Tel Aviv passion, but is the West Bank passion, to claim the land. God gave it to us. It is ours. We will take it. That prophetic zeal, which frankly I think undermines our ultimate, which undermines Israel. I think it undermines the current prime minister, and I think it undermines his the presence of those folks in his coalition. I think is a shanda. But anyway, all right. So there has awakened new biblical religious passions within the Jewish community. So it's good on one hand to have passion, but also like you awoke the passion in Ben Gvir and Smotrich too. And David Hartman's writing this in 1985. He's aware that when you bring people back to a land that they haven't been to in 2,000 years, you're going to awaken the messianic craze, okay?
Israel was founded 30 years before that. Why all this after 30 years of independence?
Good. That's an excellent question. So Ernie asked a very good question. I should have been more specific about that. Israel was founded before this, so why, like, does this article come out in 1985 when the state was founded in 1948? So I think it took a while, but something critical changed in Israel 20 years earlier than this article, and I think it took a little time to figure out. The 6-Day War. The 6-Day War changed everything. Because no longer in the 6-Day War was Israel just worried about survival. The whole power dynamic changed of the Middle East, both from the Arab perspective and the Jewish perspective. The Arab perspective of the 6-Day War was, and this is what, look, it gets Sadat to fly to the Knesset. We're not going to get rid of these people. That's what he learns in that. Like, they're not going anywhere. And then from the Jewish perspective, we went from powerless Shoah, the Holocaust, to being in Israel but just fighting to survive. And then the 6-Day War is we actually have power. The power dynamic fully flips from the 6-Day War. We go from a powerless people in exile at the start of the 20th century to midway through the 20th century. We are empowered people who are actually ruling other people. And when you have the power it allows you to put forth your vision as opposed to simply responding, which is survival, right? The War of 1948, it's like, great, you may want, like we're sitting together in a bunker, outside, of the road from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv that was under a blockade in 1948. We're just got to get the starving people of Jerusalem food. We're not like really talking about conquest of the whole land, right? But 67 flips it all. And all of a sudden now we're back also in biblical Israel. If you think about it, the current state of Israel to the west of Jerusalem is where the Philistines lived, The Jews of our antiquity, we lived the east of Jerusalem. We flip-flopped. In antiquity, we were over here. This is the Mediterranean Sea. This is a beautiful map. This is the Mediterranean Sea. He's Tel Aviv. In Israel, in antiquity, we're here. Now we're here. And now they, the non-Jews, are here when they used to be here. The Philistines were here, we were there. Now in modern Israel, we're here and the Palestinians are there. We flip-flopped. But then in 1967, we can also be here. What do we want to do with that? And then you start thinking, like, it awakens biblical passions. And so I think it takes some time to identify it, but I think 67 is an enormous turning point in terms of the consciousness of, like, what it is to be Israeli. Also what it is to be Jewish. The Jew walks around differently after 1960. You guys, you were all alive. I wasn't. But in 1967, think about how you saw the change of Israel. I have my grandpa gave me I still have it, Life mag. He wasn't very he was Jewish, but he gave me. I don't know why this is he gave me Life magazine from 1967 from the coverage of the 6-Day War, and I keep it. I have that Life magazine still. It's in my office, and he was proud of that. And that before we were, and then after that we were. Power changed a lot. Yeah.
So I was in Israel in 1969.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And I was actually there when they had the moon landing. So we were standing outside.
She was in Israel in 1969 there for the moon landing.
Yeah, so we watched it on TV through in a store window. But at any rate, what I noticed was the cockiness and the sort of attitude of, we're Israelis, you guys, you're living an easy life in America. We're here fighting the battle for you. And it was kind of upsetting, like, we're Jews too, even though, we grew up here. So
Yeah, for a long time, and still a long time, it was, there's a shirt, and there's like those T-shirt vendors in on Ben Yehuda Street or in Shukha Carmel in Tel Aviv. It says, one of the shirts, only Israel would print this. Don't worry, America, Israel's got your back. Right? It's pretty cocky, By the way, they are, but I have to say, after October 7th, you see less of that. Yes. There is a new humility in Israel that how several days after we observed the Yom Kippur War, which the lesson from the Yom Kippur War is we got taken by surprise. It happened again, and a lot worse. Yom Kippur War, there weren't cities where the Palestinian terrorists were running around and creating havoc. And it didn't hit it didn't hit the homeland. It was on the periphery. And in October 7th, since I've been there 3 times since October 3 times since October 7th, and I'm going back over the summer. You see the proud ego. Don't worry, Brian. I am in Mossad. I will kill anyone who comes near us. And I say, oh hi, I'm Brian. I have a library card. You know, one of the biggest differences was that when I went and we started meeting with people, these proud, you know, who were crying. These were not planned. Where you used to meet, you know, have a delegation of rabbis from America, and you meet the Israelis and their chests. Don't worry, you know, we are strong. We are Israeli, Iranians. You know, we will take care of them too. Like anyone, you know. And then after October 7th, those same meetings with the same type of person, they were crying at how ill prepared they were, and how they held people who died in their hands. And yet the religious passion is still there. You know, Smotrich and Ben Gvir are still present. All right, let's keep reading. Yes. I think Rosalie asked a good question. She said, are you saying that October 7th engendered a humility in the attitude of the attitude of Israelis? And I will say that just like I answered Ernie by saying 1967 was a turning point, and I know I just said the whole crossroads thing and I made a joke about it, but I think we're going to look back at the history of Israel, and the students and rabbi who are here after we're all gone, they're going to look at they're going to look at the October 7th like as a turning point. Yeah, I think it's changed. I think the whole society has changed. I'll tell you another place where it's changed. Like, yeah, there's more of a humility. There's less of a reticence also to hear American opinions. So yeah, as the power dynamic, look, because October 1967 said we can not only survive, but we can thrive. Not only can we withstand your power, I see you, Susie, I'll get to you in a second. Not only can we withstand your power, we were survivors, and then we survived the Arab onslaught. So 1967 said not only can we survive what you throw at us, we can throw something at you. We are strong. We are, and October 7th, I think, Israel as a country realizes just how vulnerable she is. What do you mean? Oh my gosh, it was a disaster. It was. Don't get me started. Like how there is not yet. Without getting political, there is a lot that needs to be accounted for, and more heads should roll because of it. The lack of preparation was unconscionable. Unconscionable. That those poor girls were sent to guard a post when, like, they were thought that everything was protected, and God knows what happened to them in captivity. We knew about the tunnels, but the technology didn't. Oh, we're a startup nation. Didn't work. And we were so cocky. Oh, that this, we know how to. And these poor girls are sitting there with like a few little guns and an unprotected army base, and you have these girls who've been in the army all for 5 minutes sitting, essentially, so vulnerable and without any means of defense, standing kilometers away from a terrorist force that is growling and poised to rip your head off, and they did. And there was nothing there to protect them. Zero, zilch, nothing. And for Israelis who send their kids, there's the reasons the hostages are so important is there's a social contract in Israel that we take, you put your kid in our hands and we take care of your kid. If, pardon my French, if shit happens, we take care of it. And we're not going to let your kid, but they did. It's a colossal failure. And the kids are too young to realize it. And it's like, you have grandkids. I have kids. Like my oldest is 16. And I would be so thrilled if he wanted to join the IDF. But after October 7th, you're a little less certain. I mean, I still would. I'd want him to do that. But I wouldn't do it as, like, I used to think, no big deal. He's fine. Too early to tell. I don't know. Too early to tell. We don't know. Yeah, I mean, they're still... Could you imagine that there's been 2 Pesachs since October 7th? And, like, it's not Avadim Hayinu, we were slaves? I mean, my God. These people, these barbarians, ripped these people out of their homes and took them into tunnels where they tortured them, and they are still there. For years they've known about the tunnels. They didn't realize, I don't think they realized how many tunnels there were. And they didn't think that the Hamas would be able to get in like that. And look, there were things that they did right. I mean, if you think about it, how they neutralized Hezbollah. Like, yeah, everybody, you're getting a page. Boom. Oh, pick up your walkie-talkie. By the way, they wanted the walkie-talkies to go off first, I think. And they had to switch the order because the intelligence was spilled, but because there was more walkie-talkies than pagers, so they wanted they wanted to blow off their heads with the walkie-talkies first. But that was pretty good, right? And look, like, I think there's, and we don't know, and what do I know about? I'm a rabbi. What do I know about military technology? But I think the way Israel has responded to Iran, and in their countermeasures to Iran's offenses, let them know we can do a lot of damage if we take the kids' gloves off. Amen. Amen. Right. Right. That's right. That's right. So look, like, good, I'm glad you said it. So Ernie said after every failure, there's always an inquiry and an investigation, and that hasn't, within a year, and that has not happened. It still has not happened. There's been no accountability. If any of us were in charge of any operation, business, personal, and we had such a colossal failure, there would be a reckoning. Where is the reckoning? There has been none. None. Okay. Boy, we got through 2 sentences today. That was great. It was like Gemara. Yeah. Okay. Last comment, then I got to go.
Who won the 67 war? Everybody here would say Israel. That is not what is being taught in our colleges. My daughter got a PhD in biblical literature, and while she was at UCLA, she's teaching a class in comparative religion. The Arabs won it. This is the source of the anti-Semitism that is happening today. October 7th and what happened afterwards on our campuses is not a surprise to me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look, that's a whole nother point that we have to face. I mean, that there was some report. I haven't seen it yet. I didn't read the paper for the past few days. There was some report that came out about Harvard and just how deeply ingrained it is. And right, these Middle Eastern studies departments in these universities, I mean, they are. If you look at like the Edward Saids and all of what that bred in the universities, it is. Look, there's to be a reckoning here too, because we have no idea. We have no idea what we have no idea of how extensive it is.
If you have a generation or two who thought that Israel did not win the war, they are therefore illegitimate in this country, in their own country. It is no wonder that those people, for two generations, everybody knows they didn't win the war. Of course, you have the
Yeah. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you but we have to end this on a positive note. Wait, hold on. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, sure. You want to? You're the boss. You tell me. I'm going to listen to you. You tell me. So what I want to say is that I kind of thought we'd get a little bit more positive. I'm sorry, this is like... It's such a downer. It's like we haven't taken any accountability. Lots of people hate us still. The country's a mess. Happy Yom HaAtzmaut? Yeah. Are leaving. Yeah, people are leaving. Doctors, a lot of scientists, a lot of the brains of the country. Yeah, Tov. Okay. I hope everyone has a meaningful Yom HaAtzmaut. I hope to see you tonight. I hope to see you on Saturday. I hope to see you on Sunday for the Jordan Gorfinkel. It'll be it'll be a great presentation. He'll make you smile. Me, I bring depression. Jordan Gorfinkel on Sunday at 5. And again on Tuesday at 7:30, and the Torah Fun dinner on Wednesday at dinner time. That's right. That's what I like hearing that. Good. Okay. She said, "Do you have a cot where I could sleep because I'm here every day?" That tells me that we're doing a good job. So thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
I need those things written down. I can't remember which days we go to, what time, stuff like that. Huh? Yeah, please.
Do you have a pen?
Put Saturday, 5 o'clock, and we'll put,
Do you have a pen?
yeah. No, I don't. Yes, I do. That's the wrong lipstick. Not here. Anybody have a pen could borrow? Huh? Gloria? You have a pen?
Does someone have a pen?
A writing pen? Could I borrow your writing pen?
Let me ask you.
You got one? Good, great. Oh, thank you. I didn't see- and take these home and read them. You can't do it here, you know, so it works out there.
Ernie, let me give you your pen back.
Whose pen is it? Thank you.
Ernie, if you want to come from Minion today, it's at 6:45. That's either.
Oh, this thing starts at 7:30, right?
Right.
That's what I'm.
Yes, it's not even. Oh, she cannot drive you? Oh, she can if she wants. She can if she wants. She can drive you if she wants.
She can drive you if you want her.
If you want her, right, if you want me to drive you. Okay, I don't work on that hour. If she wants me to work on that hour, I can do it.
Well, he wants me to come to the meeting.
Good night.
Yes, I'm going to be here. Oh, you are here? Yeah, what time do you need the trace?
Well, the G is right on the front. No.
Yeah, I'm going to be here in the kitchen.
All right.
Okay?
That's good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will buy them. And we're not making a big fancy anything. We only have 14 sign-ups. I did ask for 3 tables. But. And she did me like 30 some scones. She made a few chocolate chip. No, she bought another set of free stuff. Yeah, no, we're covered. We have that. We have what we have.
I was sending Rabbi Alexander an email to let her know about the fact that we talked about having the MID summer school, so that she'll know about it, rather than hearsay. So I think we need to do that, okay. It's okay, I'll help. Let me get my bag. I'll be there.